Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm as always your host, Brody Robertson, and today we are doing the third edition of the post-AvCon interviews. Today we have Johnny from Jonniemadeit here, who you have a number of games under your belt. I did see there was one that you had already published on Steam that got quite a bit of traction, but the one that I got to play at AvCon was called Uncle Unco. So introduce yourself, talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Thanks, Brody. Thank you so much. My name's Johnny. I'm basically a solo developer for Jonniemadeit. We have other individuals that contribute to the projects, but I'm the main developer of games within Jonniemadeit. We develop games in Unity primarily, and we have a lot of fun doing it. We just came back from AvCon where we met Brody. And he's been generous enough to have me on today. So thank you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Like, look, even if I didn't like the game, right, I really liked your energy. There was something about that, like, you were really passionate about your game. And when you had me and Shud come along talk about, like, some of the stuff that, because there was some issues with, especially Plumbo, where there were issues with, like, hitboxes and stuff. Like, you were really, really passionate to hear about like ways that could be addressed, and you'd already thought about some of those issues yourself, but it was just really cool to see someone who clearly really cared about their game and also had the ability to talk about it, because there's a lot of people who are really good developers, right? But they don't really have that I guess public facing energy, the ability to really talk about it in a way that gets other people excited.
Absolutely. And I think, like, it's no detriment to those individuals. I just it's a skill. It's a skill to be acquired over time. Now that I'm 28, I have learned how to do that in the last few years, whereas the earlier years in my studies and just trying to discover game development was just the hardcore programming and graphics and those kinds of things. But now that I'm sort of moving towards more of a, I want to get these games out there to the people, I have to focus on all the other things that come with that.
Yep.
Marketing, publishing, back ends of Steam, all those kinds of things, reviews, and now I'm on podcasts, so things are looking up.
So what is your background actually like in game development? When did you start? Do you have any sort of formal education in this space, or is it all self-taught?
That's a good question. When I started developing games when I was a kid, I started on a program called Game Maker. I'm sure many people who have tried game development or have undertaken any sort of game development before have probably heard of Game Maker. It's quite popular in the scene. Even now, people use it to produce amazing games professionally. But I started using that when I was a kid. I saw one of my primary school teachers using it, and I was just totally like a fly on a light bulb. I'm like, what's going on over here? And it was all very much just like a basic sort of Pac-Man clone that he'd made, but I was still just so infatuated by it. And so I decided, that's it, I'm going to learn how to do game development. And it took me a few years to cross from 2D into 3D. That's always a big shift for many game developers, I think, if they decide that they want to do that. Adding that third dimension can be tricky. By high school, I was probably working more in 3D than I was in 2D. And once I'd finished high school, I decided that I would go study at Flinders University. And I continued and did a Bachelor of Creative Arts Digital Media there. So a degree with a lot of focus in digital media as a whole.
Okay.
And I specialized in film and game development. So yeah, that's how I've come to be the artist that I am now and the game developer I am now. I've had a lot of amazing support over the years. Specifically, I just want to give a quick shout out to Shane.
Go ahead. Go right ahead. Is there anyone you want to mention?
Yeah, Shane Bevan from Flinders. My lecturer, he really pushed me over the edge, got me through my degree, made sure that my work was great and I was proud of what I was doing. And he helped me build those foundational blocks to get a real good portfolio out there to the gamers.
For anyone who may not be aware, there is a really popular game that was made in GameMaker. They've got it on their website. Katana Zero was made in that project, which is really cool. I didn't know that myself until just now.
Yeah, Hotline Miami as well. That's an older one.
Yep.
That was totally made, I believe, in a really old version of GameMaker. So very like original Minecrafty, like in the sense of the code base is very unique. But so that's how I started, and I decided that I needed to do more to learn C#, and basically things just started firing from there. And so now I use Unity, very similar to, I'm assuming, both of the other developers that you have interviewed so far from AppCon.
I believe both games were Unity games. If someone happens to see this and remembers if Blood Reaver, and I know End of Ember is definitely Unity. I'm pretty sure Blood Reaver is as well.
I think you're right. I think I spoke to Ewan and he was saying that he's using that he's the director of Blood Reaver of Hellbite Studios. I think he's using Unity too. It's really great meeting all these people and being in the space. So coming from not doing anything, never meeting anyone, just kind of keeping to myself, going through primary school and high school, doing game development. And now that I'm sort of making it in my early career stage, I'm meeting so many fantastic people who previously I thought there was nobody that liked to do this sort of thing, right? Like, and I thought I was an outlier. But actually, in actual fact, there's so many people who love to do it. And I just didn't have my eyes and ears open. And I like to say to people, I'm not a solo developer out of, choice. It was really out of necessity back then. And now I'm looking to like just get out there and like meet people and make bigger projects.
I've heard a fairly similar sentiment from the other people I've had on, where they started doing this development stuff, maybe they were younger, and they didn't realize there was actually any sort of scene that existed in Adelaide. Like, you see what's happening in Melbourne, you see what's happening in Sydney, you're like, oh, yeah, that's where everyone is, that's where everybody in the tech space is, but there are these growing spaces that exist in South Australia as well. It's just you need to find where they are.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, like, you have seen that with the success of your main channel and trying to carve out your own path and your own niche within the online space. And how do you do that? It's such a it's an oversaturated market at the end of the day, and you need to try to cut through and speak volumes to your audience. And I think one of the best ways to do that is do what a lot of the other game developers around me say, and make games that you love, first of all, that you love. Because if you do that, you love what you're playing, then you're going to love the process of making it. And also, when the audience receives that product in the end, going to give you immense satisfaction as a game developer. I think a lot more often than not, people glamorize game development. They'll be like, oh, there's so much money, and look at all these companies. Look at
anyone who says there's so much money is like, yeah, but if you are a solo dev that releases like Among Us, sure. But if you're just like working at like a big studio, like the rate you get paid is very small compared to a lot of the other tech space. And then if you're all of the indie devs that don't sell really well, you're like, it's awesome if you sell 1,000 copies, but like, it's just 1,000 copies. It's not.
I know. For example, my last video game had some good critical acclaim. Got me. I had decent reviews on Steam, and people really liked the product. I'm very proud of what I put out. I still am. And I'm happy to announce on that particular project that I'm partnering with a publisher. I'm not going to say who currently, but it should be on PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, and stuff very soon. So that game you see on Steam, that's going to be on other marketplaces very soon.
That being Don't Let Him In?
Don't Let Him In, correct. Yep. It's a narrative-driven horror game. Pretty deep and are like adult within its themes, but at the same time, it was something that I wanted to make. I'm very inspired still by things like games like Silent Hill and you know, Dead by Daylight, you know, most anything from PlayStation 2 era, PlayStation 1 era horror, all the way to now. And I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with the new, Bloober team is going to do with the new Silent Hill 2 remake. But that is a really big influence for me whenever I'm making horror games, which is more often than not. Obviously, the two games that you've experienced, Brody, have
I was
been
going to say, you have a very wide range of game development interests.
Yes, and this is going to be a newer thing. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't sticking to only one thing, which was horror. I just didn't want to box myself in. And I figured the best way to do that was throw a kid's game in the mix, because it's a totally different contrast between what I've done before. So just throwing a new idea in the hat, if you will.
Yeah, I had your website open before when you were doing your intro. So like this page just looks really weird compared, like if you think about like the general idea of the games you made, because most people take like one sort of idea they're focused on and hyper focus on that. Like, oh, we're, you know, think of a company like From Software, for example. Like, how many times can they make Dark Souls with a different skin and everyone still loves it? But like, you have Don't Let Him In, and then I got a chance to play Uncle Unco. Then you have, I'm not sure what Beat Driver is, because I've not had a chance to.
That's a tempo driven game where you have to basically keep your car to a certain pace. These are all, it's funny, some of these are, I would say, about 90% in the development production line. So Uncle Unco would be one of those where there's just a few bugs. We're going to improve the UI, improve some of the controller and the feeling, and then we're going to put it online because we really want to get that one out to the people. We want people to see that one first. And then the other ones are like, you know, 70, 80% done. And Beat Driver's probably more about 60, 65% the way through the production cycle. So we just wanted to show people what we're working on. So currently we're working on building trailers for all of them. So that when you click on each of the tabs, and we're actually, please bear with us. We're working on our website. We're trying
I was going to say, the only one that has a link is Uncle Unco now.
Is Uncle Unco, correct. Yeah, so we've been working on that for the last 2 weeks. And so there's been a lot of graphics and a lot of coding involved in the back end of that website. But we're just looking to really showcase our work, which we weren't doing before. We were going out to like expos and talking to people, but putting it online where everyone can see it, and it's all pretty looking.
Yeah, that's a problem I have seen as like a consistent trend. There's a lot of people that don't have any sort of web presence. I think the one that has done it the best so far is Which Way Up, because they actually have like a guy to do all of the marketing stuff. And then Blood Reaver, they've got their itch.io page, they've got a Steam page set up, like they've got like everything already. But I have noticed that with a lot of the others, it's like, okay, we have a link tree, and that's good, right? Like that's a good start, and a link out to like YouTube and like other things like that. But having a website where you can direct people to, you can like display your content the way that you want it displayed, I think really does help in establishing some sort of online presence, and then obviously making content on other platforms like YouTube, like TikTok, like Twitter. But then you get into the issue where doing that sort of work as well ends up being an entire full-time position itself and takes away from actually working on the game that you want to work on.
Oh, Brody, that is so true. That is my biggest dilemma at the moment is figuring out my capacity within what I was doing previously, which was basically developing games all day, every day, all into the night, and then not focusing on any of those other things. And being in these spaces that I'm in now, thankfully, I've been grateful enough to be um, employed by Catalyst Games, which is really great. They're another game studio here in Adelaide working on a game called Dungeons and Dining Tables. So I'd love to talk about that just briefly for a little bit towards the end, because they've been giving me heaps of opportunities in this space. And they've also, particularly the director, Aiden, has been advising me on steps that I need to make in my business to make it successful. And more often than not, it is about social media. It is about online presence and just making sure that we don't stagnate. Right. And even if it's just a small post, then it keeps the audience engaged and those kinds of things. And I would love to have the time to create lots of content. Like, I would love to be able to make write articles about my own games and those types of things. I just don't have the time. So I have to rely on fantastic people like you to, hopefully see my games in AvCon or a space or in the online space and reach out to me. It's a very grassroots approach that I'm taking currently, and it's working out great, actually. So I think just building those relationships with people, getting to know them, getting to know what they do, I think is the best way to also tell them about what you're doing, right? Because it's just gives you an in.
Well, I think the reason why it works is because what you're doing is like, the games are really cool. Like, I haven't looked at Don't Let Him In. I did see like a little bit of some stuff like on YouTube about it, but when I got to play Uncle Unco, like, it's a very simple game, but it's a really fun game. Like, you have a core game there that it's, I don't know what your long-term plans are, but like the little bit I got to play, I can see what you're trying to do with it. And I can see that, like, clearly there is a lot of like passion that's gone into it, and the art style is really cool as well. Even though the art style is basically just MS Paint.
Yeah, exactly. So no, that's so beautiful that you've mentioned that. Thank you, Brody. Yeah. That's basically, I don't know about my language here, but
you can, anything that you don't want recorded, don't say. Besides that, as long as I don't get banned, feel free to say it.
Beautiful. That's awesome. It's kind of like the crappy art style, It's like what we used to do as kids in the back of our books, not to be like, this is an amazing drawing, but to draw something funny, hand it over to your friend. You wanted to do it in a rapid pace, kind of like Pictionary, and then you'd be like, hey mate, look at this. And then they'd look, and then they just start laughing at this ridiculous character you drew, and then they'd draw a moustache, and then they'd hand it back to you. That was kind of the approach with the art style. I had to go back into my mind, back to primary school and high school doodles, especially going from photorealism sometimes to doodles. It's a bit of a jump, but it's one that I'm willing to do, and I think I did it pretty gracefully. But thanks for that. Yeah, I'm happy with how that turned out. I get lots and lots of positive comments on how Uncle Unco looks. They're like, it's so jank but cool, and it's exactly what I really wanted it to hit. So I'm really happy that the art came through.
So what actually went, like, because there's obviously a procedure that goes into making something that is like really polished looking, right? Like, you'll go through a bunch of different iterations and try to make it look nice and clean. Like, even in the case of Don't Let Him In, where it has that like PS1 sort of style to it, there's obviously a clear direction you're trying to go with there. But what was the approach with doing the art with Uncle Unco? Was it just like, if this is the first thing that came to mind, let's go with that? Or was there still that sort of iteration on those designs?
There was definitely... Actually, there was I found myself in the beginning being caught up in the drawings, because you have to do like three cell frames per thing, and then they're always animating and looping, very similar to Cuphead, but more with an MS Paint line structure. So not like a clean Walt Disney, like a bad sort of doodle drawing.
Right.
And you need to do. Well, I would have to do 3 frames per image, and when I started, I was like, oh, this guy's hair's not good enough, or this, that, and the other. But of course, eventually you start to get into a bit of a flow state with it, where you just start drawing so quickly and you go, that looks like a peanut. You know, it doesn't really need to look like perfectly like, you don't need to do shading or no gradients, no multiple colors, just one or two colors, like a very simple shadow line. And yeah, things started to take shape. And when I did the first few assets and I started laying them in, I was like, this is great. This is starting to feel like a pop-up book. Like, and you know, like all with those 2D elements, parallaxing as the ball's coming through, it just gives a sense of depth to the scene. And yeah, that was fantastic. I was very happy with the way that kind of came through. I think a lot of our process comes from what's next. You know, we started by saying with Uncle Unco, let's make something simple. Let's go back to grassroots. A roll the ball game. So we quite literally put a sphere in Unity and started making a ball move around. And we thought, okay, this is kind of boring, right? Like it's just a ball moving around a scene. How do we make this a bit more exciting and engaging? And we thought, let's put arms on him. And like, then it would be really goofy, right? And then he's like, and me and my friend were like, yeah, that sounds really funny. And then like, I would go through and do it and I'd show him and then he'd be like, yeah, this is really funny. And then we're like, the original idea was we wanted to call him Meat Man and make him like a meatball, like a saucy meatball that slaps things. And yeah, exactly. And like, so yeah, there's so many weird and wacky ideas coming out of the studio. But then we thought like it could be a bit graphic. Like we you know, if you think about it, Meat Man, meat sack, I think is what he wanted to call him. And so like you played instead of Uncle Unco, you play as Meat Sack, right? Same game, instead of being a fluffy ball, you know, you're kind of heavier, you're more sloppy, you know, you're more like Plumbo in that sense, because you know, for the audience members, Plumbo was a follow-up to this Uncle Unco. It was just more of a technical follow-up where you play as a chewed-up gumball named Plumbo, who must go through his day shift at a pin factory and not pop his head. So these are very much along the lines of the ideas we like to put forth, are like things that if I say something, especially with the light-hearted stuff, I say something to my friend and he chuckles, we go, that's it. That's cool. Let's roll with that. For some reason with Plumbo, he was initially delivering plums, like instead of just flying around. And then so my mate was like, what if he delivers plums? And then we like eventually were like, wait, how do we make a mechanic about delivering plums? We're like, nah, we'll just make it like, you know, you have to dodge pins and that you have all these different contraptions that can try to kill you as a gumball. So yeah, just back to that point of like some things come out of necessity. Some things actually, thinking about it now, just come out of like a bit or a gag that like one of us says to each other, just like Meat Sack. It's kind of like, oh yeah, and then some of them don't fly and we don't roll with them, of course. I like with any ideas, sometimes you're like, that's a good idea at first, or it makes you laugh really hard, but it's not going to hit as hard as you think it is. So you have to, right, you know, take it back to the boardroom and like sounding board it with people. And more often than not, they'll let you know.
So what is the, like, when Uncle Unco is finished, like, what is the plan for the game to have content-wise?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so we're looking to make 2 massive run levels. So what I've noticed is that with really young children, I might need to make like a bumper mode, quite similar to like bowling, where, you know, for children, there's like 2 little rails on either side of the alley. So within this platformer of Uncle Unco, when you're moving down the level, just having little walls for really young children, because I found that I want like 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds to get further than they did.
Right.
Yeah, so I initially made the game for like we shifted the focus from Meat Sack to Uncle Unco when we realized that it wouldn't work with a young demographic, or like Meat Sack just the name Sack, I think, in anything is probably just not a good play. I mean, it has like I think maybe one day we might revisit that because it's the whole thing of like if you laugh, it's probably a funny idea, but we noticed that if we moved more towards Uncle Unco, a fluffy ball, and we played around with art styles, and we kind of landed on what we thought was really cool for him as a character. And then, as you said, for the environments, everything's sort of 2D and different. So he has that contrast with him in the environment. That was the big thing, to be able to give it to my niece and nephew and say, here you go, play this, enjoy the fun little world that we've made. Whereas before, I can't show my nephew and niece, don't let him in. I can't show them all these other things that I have been working on, and I'm very proud of too. I just can't show them off to them.
Right.
I figured, like, I want to make something that I can, show off. And my little nephew Henry has been the best little play tester. Just a shout out to him. He's telling me awesome ideas. Kids have their best ideas sometimes, especially within game development. If you're a game developer and you have a kid playtesting your game, listen to every word they're saying. It's crucial information. Even though if it doesn't make any sense, it's like you have to decipher through what the kid is saying, and like they're gonna tell you exactly what's wrong with your game. They got no filter. So yeah.
Yeah, that I can imagine is very very important. If something is very like clearly like this doesn't work, like what happened, why did this break, like you're gonna probably know about it.
100%. Even if it's just as simple as something like the kid's playing a game and they just turn around and go, "Mummy, like what's happened?" Right? Like, and then because they don't know what's happened, they're so little that they're like moving this little character and he's clipped out of the world bounds and he started like flying off into the middle of the ether, and then it's like, "Mummy, what's happening?" Right? And then sometimes the parents know if they're an informed, tech savvy parent, they're going to say, "Oh, your player broke out of the world bounds and now he's falling indefinitely," right, in the ether, right? But to a kid who doesn't understand that, they just look to their mum and go, "Mummy or daddy, what's happened?" And the game developer's freaking out more often than not because he's trying to close his program and restart it, and the kid's like, "Yeah."
No, I know that feeling all too well. Like, have you ever played the Jack and Daxter games?
Yes, I have, absolutely.
In Jack 3, there is a way that you can abuse the light form flight, and you can clip out of the world.
I've never done that.
Okay.
I do know all the abilities in those games, but I've never done the glitch.
I think if you fly, shield, it reset. I think it thinks you're on the ground and does the flight so it raises your height again. I don't know the exact technical reason, but yeah. I used that to clip out of the world, and like I knew that I could clip out of the world, but like it's still. I remember doing this when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and it was still freaked me out when that happened. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. And then you have to revert to a save, but like a lot of indie titles, they don't have saves. More like, and I think that would be a something that I'm looking to have more in my game. With Columbo and Uncle Unco, it's really great because it's all level based. So it's all like, do a challenge, you unlock the next challenge, and that's quite simple. Making an RPG with many items and elements like that, and being able to save that on the fly and as a programmer, save that at any one time, and then have the player be able to click open Steam and he loads exactly up with his same inventory, with his ammo count and his health and everything. It can be a challenge, and it's always a per project thing. A saving system for a first person shooter game is very different to a saving system for a platformer game. They're very similar in the way that they work, but you have to take a different approach. So I think with those indies who are struggling to have people play their games all the way through, make save states or allow your players to make save states and try to focus on that. Because I am myself always looking to improve that because players love customization. Players love not breaking their save files, you know, and like they love to when they play, they want things to be a certain way. More often, and as a developer, I'm learning to understand this, and of course, different gamers have different standards of how polished they need something. But you know, listen. I guess where I'm going with this is listen to your audience. You know, listen to what the gamers are after, whether it's a kid or an adult. Find your target audience. You know, let them play it all the way through, create save states, all that sort of thing. And then they can really experience what you're trying to put out there as a game developer. Because it's so hard to get people to play your game. It really is. From a game developer's point of view, it's so hard to get people to actually take the time out of their day and to play it. I personally wish that I had more time to play others' games. Like, now, with more and more responsibilities as I get older, the less and less time I have for gaming, which is quite sad because it's a pastime that I truly love. I still game where I can. I do it with my nephew and nieces now, and it's fantastic because I get to share my love of gaming with them, and not just that, they're not stuck with the hardware that we had when we were kids, so they have like everything they could ever want at the power at the touch of their fingertips. So it's just awesome being able to facilitate that for them, I think. And you know, having knowledge in game dev and just in Steam and just in general within video games, it's awesome to be able to help them with the technical troubleshooting every time they have something wrong. Like they're like, my menu's not working, my sound's not working, my microphone's not working, and just being able to help them is really something that's fundamental within me. You know, like I really want to, like that's that teacher in you. I think everybody has a little bit of a teacher in them, and we all have a bit of a specialty, and we just want to show other people what that is.
So I'm 26, so you're just a little bit older than I am. But what was the first system that you got a chance to play games on?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow.
Because for me, I had a PS2, but I got it towards like the end of the PS2 life cycle, like right before the PS3 came out.
Did you have a PC in the home?
So back then, I was living in rural Queensland. The nearest town was 30 minutes away. We didn't have an internet connection yet. Yeah.
Where was it? Where were you living?
In a place called Glenwood, like 30 minutes outside of Gympie.
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, yep. And
my school had 50 students in it across all 7 grades.
Wow. So when did you come down to Adelaide?
Just after that. So grade 4 I was in grade 4 I was in Adelaide, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And you did your the rest of your primary schooling and high schooling?
Yeah, in Adelaide, yeah.
Did you study at all post high school?
Yeah, I went to UniSA. I did a 4-year software engineering degree.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Fantastic. Yeah. Do you work as a software program?
No, right now pretty much the main thing I'm doing is the YouTube stuff. I have like I have like another job doing just nonsense at Coles filling shelves. So it's just it's there, and I'm so very close to just quitting that and doing this full time.
Yeah.
But there's just like there's that little bit in my head that's like, is it there just yet? Like, should I do
sensible. I like that. You're minimizing risk, I think. You know, like I am trying to. It's funny that you mentioned this. I'm trying to learn how to build a small business and through games and hopefully being able to sell games and good games. You know, that's the main thing, and try to figure out an appropriate price point for that. But knowing your worth, you know, is really hard these days. Like, and, you know, but if you feel like something's really, really taking off, then there is definitely like, there's the opportunity to run with it. But at the same time, you have to have that calculated risk and say like, is it the right time? And
Yeah.
more often than not, it'll probably happen. Like it seems like it's probably already happening, but like you're probably pulling off less hours to do more hours over here, and your time starts to shift. I'm trying to discover that myself, Brody. I've got myself I've been scheduled in, today, and I'm continuing to build my schedule and meeting more contacts in the industry, yourself, all the other studios, other journos, and other marketing and publishing people. It's been really awesome.
We got sidetracked. I did ask you like what your first game system was, and then
Oh,
we
sorry.
went
Yes.
way
Yeah.
off that.
Beautiful. No, I wanted to learn a little bit about you. Sorry, we did.
So good,
Yes, we
so
did.
good.
My first console was. Oh, we were really lucky in the sense that I had an older brother. He had a PlayStation 1.
Okay.
Trouble was, he didn't let us touch it. So we could play it maybe once every 2 weeks, quite literally, if he was not home and dad was like, yes, okay. And then, it was always like, it's his console, and it was that was so expensive back then. So my dad was worried that us being little kids, we probably would break it or like scratch the discs or, and rightly so. I mean, I don't have them anymore. They're probably all scratched up, and my dad was right. But he had that, and he had that all stashed away in his bedroom. So we would like open the door, and it would be like, close up, and it's like, it was in the PlayStation there with like his hi-fi setup. He had speakers and everything. And, he's a teenager in high school, and he'd be listening to like Rage Against the Machine, and we'd be like, "Can we play the PlayStation?" He'd be like, "F off," and we'd be like, "Oh, okay." And, older brothers, right? And like,
I only have a younger sister myself, so I was the older brother.
Okay, F off, yeah. Same rules apply, just inverse dynamics. So my older brother, he could be a bit of a tyrant when it came to his PlayStation. Rightly so. I mean, who wouldn't be at that point in time? But then my auntie and my mum, when my brother was, I want to say 8 years old, was like, "Here's a Nintendo 64," and my brother was like, whoa. And so my brother had the PlayStation, which was the high-tech thing that we could never play and never ever touch. And then my brother had the Nintendo 64, which came out, I believe it actually came out after the PlayStation, only just. But the thing was, the technology was a little bit behind, but the games were, it was different titles. So, because if we think about it, like, PlayStation was using CDs before Nintendo 64 came out with another cartridge console. So
do you actually know that originally Sony was going to be involved in producing Nintendo consoles?
Yep. That's a funny. Yep. And that's basically, if we think about like one of the biggest. Well, if we think about the rise of Sony, quite literally as a video game company, it's basically because Nintendo rejected the CD drive that they were developing for them, and then they went, okay, well, we made all this technology, we're going to put it in our own game console, and then they did that, and the rest is history, right? And then like the market share just became huge for them, and Nintendo was like, maybe we should have taken the disc drive. I guess it's the classic Atari Sega thing, and it just keeps happening, I think right now there's a balance shift happening with Epic Games and Steam. It's like before, it was just Steam dominating absolutely everything. Like they were the video PC game guys, You wanted to get
if you wanted to play, well, they caught on because if you wanted to play Counter-Strike, if you wanted to play Half-Life, you had to do it on Steam. Like that's the reason why they originally became such a big platform.
That's right, and then came like Borderlands and all these other companies started to literally follow suit because it was just such a good selling platform. So they're like, we want to distribute on that. And now Epic, they've got Fortnite, Lego Fortnite. They're going to be working with Disney soon, and all these other just massive companies are seeing Epic Games as a I mean, we know that Epic Games is big business. We, you know, and they're a big dog in the field. But I just think, like, as far as a game developer's point of view, and an audience member, and a game player, and just a lover of games, that there is starting to be a strange dynamic shift where a lot of the devs, especially if you're using the Unreal Engine, and it's more and more devs using the Unreal Engine, they're going to go, I'm not even going to do it on Steam. I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to go straight to the Epic store because Epic is going to give them better kickbacks than Steam will. You know, we all know about these percentages that Steam take. We know about the percentages that some of these other marketplaces take off of the artists at the end of the day. Sometimes they're taking 30%, not doing a single thing. Quite literally. All they do is allow for the hosting of images and videos and allow for a download portal. That's it. That's all they do.
Well, there's also, like, Steam Cloud syncing.
No, sorry, not for Steam. Sorry, in particular, let me backtrack. Something like Google, for example. Google Play, you know, they allow you to host a thing like that. And basically, that's all they're doing. And they're taking 30% of all revenue just from that alone. And they don't help with any of the marketing. They don't help with any of the publishing. They don't help with any of the back-end stuff. All they do is allow you to have the platform. And I know it might sound me being ungrateful. I just think these percentages are just too high for not doing any of the actual creative work. They're basically going, you and your team of anywhere from 1 to 50 people, and they're making this masterpiece. Give me 30% of your masterpiece. You know, it's and of course, the more you sell, the less that percent becomes. But for this, you hear for indie devs who are just trying to sort of start in the industry, those fees can be a lot. They really can be.
Right.
I don't think that those fees are necessarily justified with the current platform structure, personally. But I hope that they improve with that. And I think that back to my point of Epic is offering a lot more incentives. They're taking less of a percentage. They're offering, you know, way more sort of advertising and promotion stuff. You know, I'm actually a Unity fanboy, so I hate saying all this stuff, right? I truly do. But credit where it's due. I do think that the Epic store is gaining more and more merit by the day. If only they could get their dang downloads under control and their server side stuff running correctly, because it's so slow, just, you know, compared to Steam. So yeah, there's a bit of shots fired there, but you know, but I do think it's something to watch out for.
I think the only issue with going straight to Epic is I don't know, because Steam has such a fan base of it. Like, people are a fan of Valve and they're a fan of the Steam store, that there's a lot of people that have this, like, negative reaction to when something is only released on Epic. Like, a good example of this recently is when when all of the Kingdom Hearts games came to PC. Like, when they're released on Epic, people are like, oh, cool, it's on PC, like, it's on the Epic store, yeah, whatever. And then when they also brought it over to Steam recently, people are like, it's on Steam now? Wait, okay, I guess it's time to actually buy it. Like, at the end of the day, for me, I don't like that there's as much lock-in with these games. I would like the ability, you know, think about it, like, you buy a game on a console, or you bought a PC game back when you actually bought PC games and not just a Steam code, where it didn't matter which store you bought it from, you were just buying the game. Like, you could play it however you wanted to, but now with all of these DRM systems and, like I get Absolutely. It with, I get it why it's like this, right? But I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
That's okay to say that, 100%. I think that's being open and honest, not just with yourself and, like, what we enjoy as, like, entertainment, but also, like, just being truthful about the matter. It's like, I don't like heaps of microtransactions. Have I bought skins? Yes. Do I like them? You know, the skins that I bought? Well, sure, I bought them. But, you know, do I think they're inherently good? I mean, nothing's inherently good or bad, but, like, you know, I think that some practices in some circumstances should be steered clear of. And it would be great if we could all have every developer could have their own Steam. If there could be like a website, hypothetically, where any dev can start their own portal, almost like itch.io is a very good example of that, but there is some security issues with itch.io. But the idea is sound, where everyone can create their own like page, and obviously that's what happens on Steam, but it's basically more like you can have like a Mediafire backlink or something like that. And I don't mean Mediafire, just like a download portal
right.
through people's own websites. Because in that case, then you just have a serial number for the game. You know, you don't have it going through Valve, you don't have it going through Epic, you're not bound by. I like to think of it like it used to be region locking back in the day. So region lock things, and they used to go, oh, well, so now you want to use this, you have to use an NTSCJ, you know, or you know, you have to use PAL. We all had PAL down here in Australia for those who are watching internationally.
At least that was a technical reason why, because there actually is differences in like hardware-wise for that. When we got past that though, and there were still games being region locked, like on the Nintendo DS, for example, games were region locked, and there was no functional reason.
There was no function, and you're right. There was a technological reason, but even then, that technological reason came about from competition.
Sure.
You know, it's always like it's the idea of. Not everything used to fit everything back then. It wasn't kind of like an all fits one, you know. Sometimes I think like if you go down and you get tires on your car, you know, you can get all these different tires that are like, you know, 18 inches, and they're all going to fit, you know, more often than not, because it's like a, you know, 18-inch tire hypothetically, or 20. If you have 4 of those, you can start to sort of quantify a bit more, I think. Like, otherwise, we can sort of, I think, get lost in it all, you know? Like, like, if you have something that's basically like, you know, 20 inches, these are a 20-inch tire, a Mercedes-Benz tire is going to fit on a Ford.
Right.
It's going to fit on that. Whereas back then, you had Ford, Mercedes-Benz, all these guys literally at each other's throats going, I'm going to make my nut different to yours. I'm going to make my bolt different to yours. I'm going to change every little component of my hardware so that you can never use my hardware with your hardware and vice versa. And it really, it's just like it's actually anti-consumer practices. That's what I guess I'm trying to get at here. I was like kind of losing
I wasn't sure where you're going with that metaphor.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so it's like, but there is so much of that rife in the game industry, right? Like anti-consumer practice, like where clearly the gamers want it one way, and then it takes so long for like, you know, either the industry to catch up and go, okay, we need one thing that suits all. You know, for example, region locking has now gone away more often than not. But, you know, consoles have gone backwards compatible, non-backwards compatible. Backwards compatible, non-backwards compatible. What's with that? You know what I mean? Like, and once again, I get that a lot of these are technical limitations of hardware and those kinds of things. A lot of them are budgetary, but it would be interesting to see, like, maybe in the future everyone's just emulating video games. That would be so bizarre, you know, when like if graphic cards are like, you know, 5 times better than they are now, and we can, you know, emulate games. That's not good for business. But if people are emulating older games that have already seen their sort of quote unquote heyday in that sense, people could argue, you know, they're losing, you know, capital on a remaster or something like that. But there does come a point where, when do we archive as well? I think, like, you know, I want to be able to play video games from when I was a kid. I have spent a little bit of money on getting a Nintendo 64 with some old cartridges that I loved as kids, right? And like,
I bet you spent a little bit of money on that.
Absolutely.
They're a bit expensive right now.
I bought them just before COVID.
Ah, okay,
It was a
okay.
very lucky time where they were still priced like medium, and now they're sort of going up again in terms of the collectible scene.
Yeah, walk into a Cashies and find where they have the NES games and just look at the prices they have on them.
Oh, really? I've
Like
got
$300 for some titles.
really? Oh wow, I've got a lot. I've got a lot. And yeah, I bought that. I bought a Super Nintendo. I bought a Sega Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was so expensive, and I bought it solely to play. I know this sounds so silly, but I'm saying it out loud now because it's true. I bought a Sega Dreamcast with 2 of these laser guns that you have to use on old CRT TVs, and I got a CRT TV and everything, just so I could play House of the Dead 2 on original hardware. I could have like got it on the Wii, but then the thing is like, I don't know if you ever remember those shooters on the Wii, Brody. Whenever they would move those laser gun games to the Wii, it would always just be like, it would be like a fake version of a gun game where you basically just point that remote and it had so much latency. Whereas when you're in the arcade and you're playing, classic, Time Crisis or something like that, when as soon as you hit the trigger, the gun would like have a full haptic feedback in your hand, and it would literally be instantaneous feedback on the screen. So like I got a Dreamcast because I was like, I've got the Nintendo, I've got this. I really, really want to play that. So I saved my pennies for quite a while, and I ended up getting that. Yeah, so I do love. I was raised on classic sort of retro games, I suppose. Like I always want to continue my love for that wherever I can, but it's so expensive now.
Yeah, I think when we talk about emulation, a lot of people are completely willing to pay for games. The problem is a lot of companies are just not selling them. Like, there is absolutely no reason why you can't turn the PS5, like, why they can't just have a system where you can just buy for like $5, $10, just like random PS1 and PS2 games. That thing has the power to perfectly emulate those games. And there are people that have, like, if you go into the homebrew scene on the PS4, people have PS1 and PS2 emulators working on it. There's no reason the PS5 can't do that as well.
And more often than not, they're like more flawless than the PC counterpart because the hardware and architecture is even closer. So it's like sometimes there'll be like ROMs that will run really, really well on PlayStation 4 that like emulation. Whereas if you try to run hypothetically that same ROM on a Windows machine, you might get some conflicts, or just like more so graphical issues, right? Like textures being strange and those kinds of things. Sometimes those problems are alleviated if you actually use Sony's actual hardware, but use an emulation inside of it. But I couldn't agree more.
I think a real problem though is that like you see this from Nintendo, where they will have these systems, but then they charge ridiculous prices for the games. It's like, do you want to pay $50 for an NES game? Like, if you charge like $10 for it, people would buy it. And if they're not going to buy it from you because you charge a crazy price, they're gonna just find a ROM online because all of this stuff has been dumped online. Like, all they're doing.
So sad. It's exploitative. Right. You know what? It's exploiting nostalgia, I think, at the end of the day. Like, we were talking, one of the questions you asked me was, what was one of my first consoles? And because the PlayStation was locked away in the forbidden zone with my brother, we got given the Nintendo 64. Me and my brother played so much GoldenEye, so much James Bond GoldenEye. Oh, best game. And
do you remember what your first game on that console was? Like or is it just too hard to remember?
Super Mario 64.
Fair enough.
And Banjo-Kazooie, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Because we would have got it probably towards the end of the life cycle, which Banjo-Kazooie was, you had to have this little red expansion thingy to even run the game. But those Nintendo 64s, they were something else. yeah, me and my brother, we used to play a lot of GoldenEye because we loved the multiplayer. We loved playing together split screen and seeing the power of that. And like, it was always like trying to render like 3 worlds. So it was always like super choppy, like classic split screen games. And now it's so good. Just taking me back thinking about it. Yeah, GoldenEye, what we said just before about the exploiting of nostalgia, Nintendo Switch released like a GoldenEye for Nintendo Switch, and then it was originally supposed to be released on the Xbox 360, but then they had licensing issues, and so then that game was literally built all HD remaster, and then they scrapped it. It was totally lost. The game never got released. It's really, really tragic, actually. And then what happened was they revived it, like this project 10 years later. So it's basically, there was going to be a remaster, collapsed and burnt, and then they started it again. They bring this source code over again. They actually did release it on the Switch. They had no online multiplayer, which they did have in the previous version. They've removed so much stuff. They basically nerfed the entire remastered game. Not just to fit it on the Switch, they just couldn't get all of the other stuff working with the, because it used to be through, the license issue was Xbox was going to do it through Xbox Live, through XBlah, and now it's actually through Nintendo. So Nintendo is like, and they couldn't support the infrastructure for it in their back-end service. So they basically went, here's a single-player version of your game, remastered and stuff. Oh, and by the way, if you actually want to enjoy yourself, you have to buy like a $300 controller. And it's basically like a Nintendo 64 controller, true, but it's wireless for the Switch. And so I just see that, and it's nostalgia bait. You're trying to get somebody to buy this controller that they're very fond of. They're fond of this old. They're trying to like have a moment, right? Like they're just trying to. Oh, that's nice. Right? You stop them from doing that. While with a redonkulous price point like that. I think it was like $80 or $90 straight away, but you know how Nintendo goes. They all got, because it was limited edition, they all sold out straight away, and everything got up to 150, literally 300. I don't even want to look at what the price is now for a Switch controller of an N64. If anybody's watching this, please do yourself a favor. Go on like eBay, Alibaba, and just order a Bluetooth one, right? That does the same thing. Like, don't give Nintendo your money there. I do give Nintendo your money. They do great work, but not there. Not with that controller.
The problem isn't giving Nintendo your money, it's giving the resellers your money. And this is the problem I have with people who are selling classic games for crazy prices. Like, you cannot buy that game from Nintendo, Sony, whoever the game was originally from, because they are no longer selling the game. The only copies that are out there are these secondhand copies that maybe you find at a Cashies, maybe you find at eBay or somewhere else, and it's got whatever crazy, like, go look at prices for early Pokemon games. I've seen Pokemon Crystal going for $500.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about here. We all see it. We all see it. Like, game collectors, even, especially, I feel really bad for first-time game collectors. I really do. For, like, younger kids who are maybe like teenagers, should I say, who go, you know what, I want to go and pick up some PS2 games. I feel very bad for them. I do, because that's not an option for them anymore.
Nope.
And so I'm the problem, right? I get it. Like, I have a huge stack of PlayStation 2 games and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I got them for me, my brother, and my family, and my nephews, and all of the other kids in our family. So I can be like, here you go, like, check this out. Like, my nephew's watching Harry Potter at the moment. So the other day I walked in, I went, here are all the Harry Potter DVDs, and I just slammed them down on the table. And he's like, whoa, and it's like, it's same. So I've got these so I can show him,
right? Because
otherwise, he will never be exposed to this art that I was exposed to as a kid if I don't expose him to it,
Right.
In baby steps. I'm not going to show him Silent Hill immediately, but he'll get there, and I'll be like, you're 14, 15 now. Here's Silent Hill, go play it, go and be spooked, be totally spooked and enjoy yourself, because really that's what video games I think are about at the end of the day. when I started development, I was like, oh, video games are about like passing the time. That's what I've always thought. It was more of a passive, like, a pacifying thing.
Right. No, I get that.
But yeah, but that's what I thought about. Like, even myself, I thought, oh, like I've got an hour to kill. I'm gonna game. Like it's fun.
What would be your like general go-to like around then?
Oh, when I was now for that, it's sadly it's Fortnite. It's Fortnite. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like I am a little bit ashamed to admit it. No, no, I'm not. I think it's a fun. They have a winning formula there.
Yeah.
I've come from games like Call of Duty on the PlayStation 3. Like if we're talking about that mid-range sort of stuff, Call of Duty, Battlefield. I do love shooters. I'm not like shooters all the way. Like, and that's all I play. Like I've played Kingdom Hearts, Jack and Daxter. Like I love platformers as well. Like definitely like Super Mario was one of my first games on 64. So that really shaped it. It was like I had Super Mario. I had James Bond GoldenEye, which was a first-person shooter, and that was really the Call of Duty at the time. It was like split screen, like jank FPS, developed by a company called Rareware. If you know, those guys, especially back then, were absolutely killing the game. Every single thing they made was a masterpiece. Like Banjo-Kazooie, Conkers, like quite literally everything they touched became gold. And it was for these years, and they made so many different things. Every time I get so enthusiastic when I talk about Rareware because like they are a huge inspiration to me in terms of like they just kept doing it. They literally had like they're playing T-ball. They just kept hitting them over and over and over, and they didn't stop. And then what's remarkable is that they still exist. They still exist, Rareware, and they made Sea of Thieves was their last game that I was last big game I was aware of.
They made a Battletoads game in 2020. Wait, what?
Yeah, and so there was the remasters that they did as well on the Xbox One, which I ended up picking up. Which included Perfect Dark, but it didn't include James Bond because of licensing issues with James Bond and Nintendo and Xbox and them not being able to get on the same page. I'm
looking through the game list right. Yeah, I'm looking through the game list right now, and it's so sad that after Nuts and Bolts, they just became like the Connect Sports company for like quite a while.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. It's really sad. I think it was the acquisition from Microsoft. Quite literally, when you just brought that up, I'm like, oh, yeah. That's about the time that they, the overarching idea changed and they shifted focus in a bad direction. But, from where they were at that point in time for, specifically the Nintendo 64. Just the catalog on that console from that company. Ragtag team, multiple ragtag teams of developers, just delivering amazing work. That is really inspiring. I mean, it's speaking about now when we first started talking about like all these weird games, my 4 panels and stuff. On my website, I'm trying to recreate this stuff from when we were kids and we used to go into a video store and we'd see like 4 or 5 things. We're like, what's that?
Yeah, that's something that you just don't get to experience anymore. There are so many... So I didn't really get that many games as a kid because my parents just didn't have that much money. But we did go to Blockbuster every so often and rent a game for like 2 or 3 days. And there are so many weird... Like, you would go in there and it's like, oh, there's games you've probably heard of. Oh, look, hey, it's a Ratchet and Clank game. Oh, there's Jack and Daxter. I think I played through all of Jak 2 my first time through Blockbuster. But
that is so good. Yeah, because you have to keep if you really love the game, you have to keep rehiring it, and you're like, before you know it, you're like, I spent like $35 to $40 on
Yeah,
hiring this
could've just
game. I
bought the
probably
game.
should. Yeah, exactly. But
But
hey,
there
for us being kids.
there's so many just garbage bottom of the barrel games I played back then. Like I probably like one that's for whatever reason sticking in my mind is I think it was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban on the PS2 or
Yeah.
something, or maybe it was
Yeah.
Goblet of Fire, one of the two. It was not good. It was really bad. And there's just
First two games, those first two Harry Potter games were really fun, but those last two ones, the ones that you just mentioned, were garbage. Like, I had that as well.
there's so many other just random things I got to play through that, and just you just don't get to experience that anymore because there's just the closest thing to that, right? I guess you could argue something like Battle Pass is similar in a sense where you just get like a wide access to all of these games. You can just pick random things to play, but it's not the same, right? Like walking into a Blockbuster or any of those other similar video stores and just grabbing the first grabbing the first cover that appears interesting on the shelf. You didn't look up what the game was. You didn't have your phone on you.
You didn't read the blurb.
What's the
you just
what's
looked
the game
at the
about?
images.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty pictures, and you're like, and then you see some guy with guns, and you're like, oh, this must be a gun game.
Yeah,
Or you
yeah.
saw like, if it was a Tomb Raider, you're like, oh, it's Tomb Raider, or it's a new Tomb Raider. That was always cool too. Sequels and stuff like coming out in the blockbusters and the video easies and stuff, like,
Yeah, Video Easy. Yeah, I forgot that was the one I was thinking of before.
Yeah, we had one around the corner. They were called Movie Land. They had like a few of those around Adelaide. So they were a very like mum and pop sort of video store back in the day. And yeah, it was awesome. We were so lucky to have the guy who worked behind the counter. He knew my older brother. So we'd be like, me and my brother would go in and hire MA and R stuff at like, 14, 15. He'd be like, yeah. And like, if it was really bad and the guy had like played it, he's like, this is R18. We're like 14 or 15. He's like, normally I'd give you like GTA, like anything you want, sort of thing. But like, I'm not going to do like this movie,
Right.
like until, like you watch it, like, and then get your brother in to come and get it for you. Like, because it's like, he was my brother's mate and he would give us a lot of stuff, but he's like, I need your brother to come in and get this movie. Like, if you're going to want to watch it, he's got to say yes. Because, like, I'm not going to say yes, but no, I can relate. Like, it was also just having conversations with those people because you would ask them, what's new? It wasn't Netflix telling you what's new. And, like, the streaming services and, like, Steam being like, what's new? It was quite literally a person being like, did you know this dropped? Did you know this came out? Well, you wouldn't even use the word dropped back then. Did you know that this came out? And
I think the first time I ever saw Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift was from a Video Easy.
Yeah.
Like we got it and we were like, what the hell is this? Who are these characters? Why this has nothing to do with Fast and the Furious. What is going on?
Yeah, exactly. That was like Little Bow Wow, I think, was in that one, right? Like, I remember that. It was like Little Bow Wow was really big at that point in time. Sorry, I've got my brother doing some stuff in the background.
It's all good.
There was so many. I remember a weird movie. Do you remember the movie called Snow Dogs?
I know the name. I'm completely blanking on what it's about.
It's about this dude getting snow dogs.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know this. Yeah.
What? I watched this as a kid, like twice or three times. And every time I watched it, I was like, this is trash. But you're a kid, so you pass the time anyway. And you just kind of like, I don't know, you just put up with it, I guess, back then. We never were lucky enough to have like Foxtel or broadband as kids. We had the full dial up, where you picked up the phone and it was like, and you'd be like, hello, I'm getting messages beyond the ether. And same with Foxtel. Never had any Foxtel, so I would always be going over mates' houses and they'd be like, you know, you'd be watching like full Cartoon Network and stuff like that. Whereas like I was like, more exposed to like, one was called Cheese TV and the other one was called something else. I can't exactly remember. But it went, someone was saying it the other day, it went to something else. It was
Cheese TV, isn't that the one that became Toasted TV?
Yep, that's it. Yep, that's the one. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So Toasted TV, like me and my friend were having a conversation the other day, Brody, about 90s advertising and like in particular and how hard hitting it was. So these days, advertising is so subtle. It's always like through a short video where it's like, oh, like this coffee's really nice. Like it's always really subtle advertising and they don't want to like do it. But back then it was like, get your coffee now, you know? And like,
whenever I think of advertising, there's a couple of things that always come to mind. The Slip Slop Slap ads.
Yep.
Noah's Caravan. And, oh, what was it? I remember it's like what 13006996. Well, I don't know what the numbers for. I
it's the reading and writing.
Right.
Yeah,
Rewriting helpline. Yeah.
Yeah. Good message there. I think. But yeah, no, I couldn't agree. I agree with you. I think there's something funny. It's about old advertising and the way it used to hit, and I think that like people are kind of trying to like get that back. I don't know if you've seen these RAA ads of that weird bumblebee around the place. Like, if you try and Google it, RAA bumblebee launches a new campaign. Like,
no, I've not seen this one. I don't.
Yeah. So basically, if you go on Google Images and you see the little bumblebee sort of mascot thing that they've created.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's on a billboard, like fully spread back with like, you know, yeah, and it's like it's very silly, but like the funniest thing is, I think that there's something about bad advertising, right, that works really well. I saw this one video on Instagram, and it was like the top comment spoke volumes, and it was basically this guy had installed like a rotating sign, like, but the thing was there was like a light pole in the way, so it would go like, it would rotate like 30 degrees or 40 degrees, smash this pole. Go back, and then it would like do it again. And it would just keep doing that, right? And then someone's on YouTube and he's like, what idiot set up this, right? This advertisement. Top comment on it was like, it had millions and millions of views. And it's like, this billboard would have never got seen millions of times if it wasn't for like the stupidity of like the fact that this sign is constantly bashing into another sign. And it was like, you know, it was almost, someone said like, whoever made this is a genius, you know, and like, because it's so like, and so yeah, I think those guys are truly the marketing geniuses, the guys that come up with that sort of weird, wacky stuff that like, you know, like Noel's Caravans. What a genius, right? Like, you know, how do you? For those of you who don't know, it was
I have a lot
song.
of audience in like America and stuff that have no idea what the hell Noel's Caravans is.
Yeah, so a caravan is like a sort of like one of those trailer homes, like a motor home that you have on the back of your car. And like there was this guy named Noel who would sell them, like, and you know, I don't know if it was a chain of them or whatever, but yeah, he had a little jingle. And can you feed the audio?
I should be able to find it. Noel's Caravan.
I was gonna sing it, but I'm like, probably not a good take.
Here we go. 13 years ago, Noel's Caravan.
Around 75% of all buyers who come to Noel's Caravans come on the referral of a satisfied customer.
Send you the link
or
in case
come
you
back
want to check
to buy
it out again as well.
So come in
Thank
and find
you.
out why.
Oh wow,
Noel's
the
range
font.
of around 120 new and used vans, chances are you'll find the van you want and the price you want. Or if you want a custom built van, you can't go past
Noel's Caravans, Noel's Caravans, Noel's Caravans, Noel's Caravans.
There he is. There's the man himself.
Yep. Oh. Oh, I love that so much.
Oh, it's me too. It's so quintessentially South Australian.
And then
just Aussie.
I mentioned the slip slop slap ads as well. Like those have been going on. I didn't realize how long those ads had been going on for. But
No, it's a great message. I'm lost though in it now. I got to be honest with that. See, that's the thing about the campaigns back then. Slip slop slap, fantastic. Now it's slip slop slap with a rapping cap. You know, like I got lost in the mix because like I get it. It's all a good message, but like slip slop slap was easy to remember. Where it's just like, you know, chuck on sunnies, put earbuds in your ears. You know, like cover yourself in you know, puts lotion on its skin again, or it gets the hose. You know, I'm not sure like you know, why they've decided to change that, but I get that we know now more about the sun.
right.
Like, we understand the sun more.
But like it's a really catchy tune and like gets the core message out there. Like
yeah, slip, slop, slap, seek and slide, go out, find outside, and don't get fried. You know, it's good. I agree. I think now that they've switched it up a few times where I was like, I don't know about that. It's the thing about like them changing our childhood, right, in front of our eyes. It's like being like, was it hashtag not my hashtag not my Knowles caravans. You know, they come up with like a 3D CG render of him and they're like, Knowles caravans, and I'm like, hashtag not my Knowles.
That's how I felt when so when I was like really young, my favorite thing to watch was Bob the Builder.
Yes.
So when I in like recent years discovered they restarted it, but this time with like some weird like 3D looking Bob.
Yep. They did Bananas in Pajamas dirty. That was one of me and my brother's favorites. And it's like, they were men in suits. That was the charm. And there was a rat. It was a very clever rat. And then like, you know, he's now a very clever 3D rat.
Okay.
Yeah. I know.
I didn't know this. I'm okay.
I probably shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, probably not.
Hashtag not my B1. Hashtag not my B2.
This is gonna be an episode where nobody has any idea what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, sorry. I apologize. There's a lot of Australian nuance. Yeah, so we apologize if you can't follow along with our madness. Australian madness.
This is our blueies.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway,
that's a good one. That's a good. I like that. Yeah, my nephew and niece, they really love Bluey. I think.
I was going to say my favorite thing about that is there's a lot of American kids who are growing up on Bluey who are developing Australian accents because that's the only cartoon they're watching.
No, is that real?
Yes.
That's kind of cool.
You were going somewhere before I cut you off again.
Oh no, I was just I was going to say if you allow me to just discuss for a short minute a little bit about what I'm doing in the CBD at the moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go back to games for a little bit because
Maybe we should do that.
I can talk all day about like 90s pop culture and like early to Y2K pop culture too, and like even like 2010s and stuff. I love to take a dive back then and reflect. You know, what do you call it? I'm trying to find the word. Sort of like a post-reflection. Of what we experienced then, and I do think that like bringing a lot of those things to bring it back, you know, moose, dry sand. That was so crazy, dude. When I was a kid, it was like, I remember there was like bindies and all these other things, but they're like, look at this dry sand. You can put it in water. Yeah. You can bring it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I want to try to make my games like that. I want them to hit as hard as the dry sand. Like, you know, well, to me as a kid, it was so impactful. I loved it. I never had any dry sand. Never got any. Amazing though, right? Like, you know, all of those Moose toys. I swear that was the most affecting advertising I've ever seen. Coca-Cola could learn something from Moose. Like, I think they've actually banned most of those, like, practices of advertising to kids, like the ones that we actually had, where they're like, get to dry sand, otherwise you're not cool. You know, like, which is cool. I'm glad that they don't do that. Like, but at the same time, a little part of me misses it. At the same time, it's a catch. It's a double-edged sword. I think.
Right.
With advertising is always about that. But trying to learn that, being in a small business, and trying to move forward with what I'm doing now in Adelaide with Jonniemadeit, my company. We are trying to release games, so get things past the prototype stage into a sort of more completed state, and then put them up on Steam. As I mentioned earlier, we're having some video games being put on PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox. So every audience member, please keep your eye out for those. It's a very affordable horror experience. So if you're a horror guy or gal and you want to jump in and play some like a cool indie horror game, Don't Let Him In is coming out soon on those platforms. So yeah, please everybody reach out to me through Jonniemadeit, and you know, general inquiries can go to jonniemadeit@gmail.com. It's that simple. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say one more thing about what I'm doing in Adelaide, which is I've just been given an office space for 6 months. So I'm looking to get more work out there, as well as continue to legitimize what I'm doing and move out of the bedroom, like move out of there, you know, and more into an office of my own. Start to think about bringing on more personnel to get the games out quicker, because it's kind of that, and also what we were talking about before of finding a balance of how do you like write the articles and how do you do all that marketing material and stuff. Getting some personnel on board to handle those big things and just get like a nice group of individuals with different skill sets, so that I can focus on making games and business building, while other people who love to do social media, because I know there's so many people out there who love to do social media. If there are any listeners right now who are social media people, please reach out to me via my email, which is jonniemadeit@gmail.com. Again, we are looking for individuals with those kinds of expertise. So, yeah.
I was gonna ask you to do all that when we signed off the episode anyway, but hey, we can just chuck that in right now as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, what was the response like at AvCon? So, how do people like appreciate the game? What did people say? Like, did people bring up issues that maybe you weren't aware of already, or point out things that you maybe were aware of that you were, you know, already working on?
Absolutely. You know, all three of those things. I mean, one of the things that, you know, when I was speaking to you and we were playing it with the other two individuals that you were with on the day.
I think I was there with Shud and Aiden. Yeah. I think it was on Sunday we were together then.
Yes. Yeah. They had mentioned. Yeah, Shud had mentioned that the collision boxes were out, like they're cubes instead of being triangles within the pin factory. So I need to make sure that I fix those kinds of small feeling issues, you know, with the player, so that he feels correct. So a lot of just seeing a lot of advice on what people want to see, but also improvements on how we could improve. One of the ones in Plumbo, which was really eye-opening for me, and I've been relaying this to my developer friend, is within Plumbo, since it's a platformer, you go left, right, up, and down.
Sure.
But then there's a scene when you go from being like Paper Mario to being Mario 64, where you start to have that third axis, so you can move forward, back, left, right, up, and down. And when you add that last vector, which is forward and back, or you add that last angle, so you can go up, down, left, and right, everything like that, that's when people didn't know that the inflate and the deflate changed buttons, because the way the controller has to be mapped, you're only limited to so many moves, so the control scheme has to change according to the specific challenge levels. So if you're in 2D view or side view, everything feels normal. But then when you go from being into third person, or whenever those special challenge rounds like pop up, people were getting confused on.
I didn't realize there was a 3D segment. I don't think I played that one.
Yeah, there are. There's actually 15 levels in the game. It's quite close to being in a early access alpha state. So that's basically what we're looking to get. All of these 4 projects that we have online, we're looking to get this into open alpha states so that people can play them. People can give us even more feedback than we know now. But we're currently implementing a lot of the feedback that we heard over AvCon from you, from other players, and also from other developers, which was crucial to be in that space with other developers, which is where I'm at now in the city. I'm now in a co-working space with other game developers. It's amazing to have that. AvCon is priceless for the opportunity in the sense that you get to go directly to the players, like Brody. And, and then that's actually how Brody approached me for this interview. So I'm very grateful for that. So just being there, being in there and being seen is a big thing, I think, especially when in early career.
Well, that's also like with AvCon, it's very much anime and video game focused, right? Like there's that audience for both. But that's what I think is really cool about Sage, and why I need to go, and I'm gonna go next year. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna put it on my calendar. We've brought up Sage with one of the earlier guests as well, who I think was Hellbite was there, maybe it was someone else.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think I talked about it with you, and then Sage is a new convention. Like it started last year. Like this is very, very, very new. And
Sage.
Yeah.
There was maybe one before that.
Maybe it's
that. Yeah, but you're right.
But it's past couple of years.
Yeah, it's right. Only that's right. It is.
Everybody
amazing.
there is focused on gaming and interest in gaming, and I'm sure that's like a very different sort of audience you have there, because you get a lot of the people who just have like a passing interest in games coming through AvCon, but everybody there at Sage cares about video games.
Yes, absolutely, Brody. And it's fantastic because I think when I want to show off my more technical side of games and not my more casual things, that leans more towards Sage and those types of expos. Because when you're at something like AvCon, when people are coming through, or even at Sage, actually, casual does work really well for Sage too. I think any exhibition where individuals can't take the time to actually experience your game, I think that having a fast, rapid demo is very important, because you're only going to have 5 minutes per person, 10 minutes per person. We were lucky to have probably 20 to 30 minutes to have a chat, on the day. But more often than not, especially during the peak hours, it can be even less. So what I've tried to do is make have more casual experiences at the expos, but then some of the expos with more of the technical side of things and more of the the game developers, the journalists, they can come in and see the more technical projects. And it's not that I think it's just sort of more of a target audience thing, really, right, is what I'm thinking. And Sage is a fantastic opportunity to network. It is such a great event. As you said, they've only been doing it for a couple of years. I attended my first one the year before last as an attendee, and then the last year I went as an exhibitor. So I decided, like, that's it. I saw what everybody else was doing. They had this cool booth. They were given these awesome opportunities. They got to meet lots of friends. I'm going to do it next year. And I did. I did do it. And I had an absolute blast.
Yeah. I kind of feel bad for the people who are showing off like visual novels and other like slow-paced games at a convention, because they're making a really cool game, but it's hard to really demonstrate like why the game is cool in that sort of framework.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you succinctly said that way better than I did. This is why you are the podcaster and I am the random guy jumping in.
I am just the guy who rambles in my bedroom.
Oh, well, that's, I'm just the guy who programs in my bedroom. So, I do think that that's the case. Like, casual works so well for that, right? Like narrative driven things. Even like any sort of, storyline driven thing or any mechanic that's focused on grinding even, it doesn't work the best, right? You can't really have a grindy game in one of these expos because no one has the time to grind while they're at an expo.
The only way a grindy game works is if you do some sort of like vertical slice and it's like, hey, here is a cool boss mechanic. We're going to focus on going into the boss fight, or we have like a streamlined section, like End of Ember, for example, where it builds up as you go through the zones. So instead of doing that, they have like a small section of it. Like, okay, you get from the start to the first boss. And it's like this contained experience where you get a idea of the game, but...
Absolutely, Brody. I think that developers, like I myself, have been leaning more in towards the casual, the quick. I have other games that are more narrative focused, a bit more like Don't Let Him In, that are like, one of them is called In a Moment. That's a working title. I'm not too sure if it has enough impact yet. That is, you play as a maintenance man who basically is stuck in purgatory. That's as much as I really want to reveal just now, but you're a maintenance man in purgatory. It's a first-person shooter horror game, narrative-driven.
I was going to say, that sounds like a horror game.
Yeah, it's quite cool. I think I'm really excited for that project because I have been making casual stuff for a little while now. Happy to start to put my teeth right back into the apple and do some more cutscene and like just get deeper into the narrative stuff again, because I was moving away from that, doing casual arcadey type experiences. So the plan is to get Uncle Unco out there, get Plumbo out there, and then focus back on again with a narrative experience. But for example, when I go to show off that, I'm going to have to figure out how I do that appropriately, because it will be an hour-long experience that I will probably have to just take a specific sequence that goes for like 2 or 3 minutes of, a down section, a climax, and like a jump scare. And then it goes like, if you want more sort of, and what's really cool about this conversation? It's going back to the early PS2 demo discs.
Right.
And like making those, right, for your experience at those events. So when you hand it to someone, that's what they're playing. They're playing a demo disc. My friend had the most brilliant idea for me for AvCon, and I love to say this, which is, he said to me, he goes, dude, why don't you do what we did when we were kids, where if nobody touches the controller, no one touches any input or anything, after like 30 seconds, a video starts to play of the game loop. So like Tekken or something like that, like when you don't interact with the game. And it was funny, someone's like, Mortal Kombat still does that to this day. And it's such a, I think, underutilized thing, especially at Expos, because I saw so many individuals having like a video on loop, like that they were either like swapping back and forth from, and all that sort of stuff. And you can see their Windows machine desktop, and of course I had the 2 machines, and I really wasn't planning on demonstrating Plumbo, but it just had such a fun, like people were really enjoying it, so I figured I might as well show this off at the same time. And it's really good to do that because for myself, because it does give me that extra bit of encouragement just to finish it off in that sense. Like, and so that's what I'm getting into now, because getting people to see it, it's like, this is great. Keep going. You know, hearing that is really good. It's hard to get, I mean, so there's lots of artists listening. You know, don't be dissuaded. Just keep working hard at your craft. People will recognize you eventually. And it's when you least think they will. So you'll be like, all the chips are down. No one's going to, no one's going to watch my podcast. No one's going to play my game. No one's going to listen to my music that I'm writing. Before you know it, it does actually change. And you go, wow, people are here. Like, and they're on board with what I'm doing. And that is so encouraging, because, and it does happen when all the chips are down. So hypothetically, if that's you right now and all the chips are down and you're an artist or you're a creator, just realize there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still constantly reminding myself that every day because I do have lots of projects and lots of responsibilities on. And now I'm working with other game companies and everything. But, just my friend the other day, he's like, just remember to meditate, to breathe deeply and to get through it and to not forget to be creative. And it's the most important thing is the art at the end of the day. It's not really about, what I'm talking about now. This has been fantastic and I love to express myself, but it's really at the end of the day, it's about the art. It's about the games. That's the way that I am expressing myself directly to my audience. Like you probably are expressing yourself to your audience in a different way. And we as creators have to discover that. And like, sometimes it's simple as I painted this thing, I put it on a wall and then people go, and that's all that is, and that's all you need, as a creator. But obviously different disciplines, we all look for that little relief moment or that little satisfaction moment within what we do within our careers and creative work. But back to the point, if your chips are down and you're going really hard in the paint on whatever that is, just remember that there is people do care and people like art. There's so many critics out there too. This is a good lieutenant. So many critics. Try not to be your harshest critic, but also be your harshest critic. It's just that's such a weird one, right? Like you have to be your own harshest critic, but you have to know when to let up. And I wish that real critics knew how to do that, right? Like especially within like Steam comments and stuff like that. I am quite lucky to have received quite a good response from what I've created. I'm very lucky, and I've been working a very, very long time to try to get my games to a position where people don't hate them.
That's always good.
Yep. Because believe you me, Brody, the first 10 games I ever made, people hated them. The first 50 games I made, people hated them. Could you even call them games? I don't know, right? Like, but, after a while you do get a rhythm of it and you're like, you know what, maybe I am like getting better at this, So, and hopefully I continue to grow, and hopefully all the other artists out there, you continue to make strides in whatever you're doing.
I think the important thing, no matter what field you're in, is actually release something. Because you'll have people say, oh, I want to make a game, I want to write a book, I want to start streaming or make YouTube videos. Do it. Stop saying you want to do it. Do it. Like, if you just sit there saying that you're gonna do it at some point, oh, if I get this ready, if I do that, or like you'll start doing something and then it's like, oh, is it ready yet? Oh, is it going to have a good response? Just release it.
I was apprehensive about coming up because I haven't done this before. I am not the most confident speaker. I try my best. That's all I can do is try my best, and that's what I hope from everybody else is that they're trying their best. But I was very apprehensive about coming on here today. I'm like, am I going to do a good job? Also because I've never done this kind of thing, and I'm warming up to it. But yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying, Brody. It's it can be a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of like perfectionism, especially where you want it to be like, you know that you could make this change or make this change, and you could probably keep making changes to anything you want to do. But at some point, you have to say, I've done enough. This is ready, and it's time for people to see this. And finding that point, no matter what you're doing, whether it's a book, whether it's a video or game, like, it's finding that point is difficult, but you have to accept that at some point you have to just be done with it.
That is, we were having this conversation in the kitchen of the office yesterday, and it was Chad, who's been interviewed by Brody. He's part of Bad Plan Studios on End of Ember. He's also a business guru, games business guru, and he is a lecturer at AIE, and he does the GDML program there. So he's like really qualified, and he knows what he's talking about. And me and him were talking in the kitchen, and same conversation we're having right now. It's the Shia LaBeouf, like, just do it, exactly. Right? Like, and there's so many ways we can get caught up in our own thoughts and our own thought processes. Like, am I going to be good on this podcast? Is my game going to be good enough for Steam? But at the end of the day, if we just try to hold a little bit of self-confidence in ourselves and knowing that, like, whatever happens, it's going to be fine. And
if people don't like the game, make another game.
Dude, that is exactly. I would actually argue that if people don't like the game, like, this is actually speaking to the devs, start something new rather than constantly trying to bash a dead horse, quite literally. And, like, you're better off talking to early game devs right now. Like I said before, my first 10 games were terrible. My first 50 games were terrible. You know, God, how many games have I made? I've only got one proper one released, but it's proper. Like, it's a proper game, right? Whereas everything else before that, could you really call it an actual game? Or was it more just like me experimenting with programming and learning the art form as the start of it? So yeah, definitely don't be dissuaded if it does take you 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 failed projects until you get your first project. Quite literally, you can't become a music composer overnight. It does take you over 100 songs easily. People say it takes you 10,000 hours to master something. Way more than that. I don't know who said that it takes 10,000 hours. It takes 10,000 hours to get the thing up and running. You know, it takes 50,000 to 100,000 hours of living your life, doing something, living, breathing, to do it. And, being a solo dev, I do kind of take on a lot. I sometimes take on too much. And, like, going on the discussion of, like, burnout territory, I can reach that point being a solo dev, but I now know that I need to figure out my capacity and diversify my time around the place, scheduling, working with people. That is going to help me immensely going forward, I think, with my particular projects, with where I'm at in my career. Anyone who's just getting into game development, my suggestion would be just to keep grinding on whatever engine you're using, whether it's Unity, Godot, Unreal. Just keep making projects. Do what Brody said, release them, get some negative feedback. Negative feedback is critical in improving. The amount of times I've been told my games are dreadful, I should stop doing this for a living. You name it. I've heard it all. I literally have heard it all. So, and you know what? Also, what comes with that is really thick skin. So when someone says to you, this mechanic is jank, you don't go, oh, you go, actually, yeah, it is. And like, that comes only with time and experience and not being so sensitive about what you've built.
Yeah.
I think, like,
I get that people are attached to a project they've built. It's you spent, like, 6 months, a year, maybe multiple years on a project, and you didn't make it to be bad. So when someone's like, here is a problem
This
with it.
is
Like
bad.
that could feel like a
when
personal attack, and I get that, but like
when it's really hard hitting stuff like that, it really does hurt. And I don't want, like, I have known people just to outright quit. I've known people to quit for years. I have known and come back to it, which is great. If people need to take a hiatus, that's always fine. Just be aware that there are problems that come with that. And Brody's, as a content creator, I'm sure you're very aware that hiatuses are not a good thing, right? for analytics, statistics, like for all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so just knowing, I think being able to identify where you are in your career is a really difficult thing within game development, because and also to try to find the things that you don't know and to find the people who know the things you don't know. Those are all really difficult within the game space within Adelaide. It is a tight-knit circle, but at the same time, it's growing. There are more and more people getting into it, and there are more and more people just finding it out. So, I mean, if there are any listeners in Adelaide, get a hold of Games Plus. Like, reach out to the Games Plus people. Reach out to me, send me an email. Quite literally.
you made a mistake there.
Literally, reach out, because there's support, and there's people out here who want to help young budding game developers. I'm very much about helping early career game developers, right? At any stage in their life, if they want to start picking up games, I appreciate the endeavor of doing it, because I do it every day, and so I know the challenges that come with it. But yeah, I do encourage it. I do encourage game development as a medium for creators, and you don't have to do solo deving or anything along those lines. You can do art, like 3D, 2D. There's so many streams and avenues within this. You can do like icons for like UI interface, like mobile icons and those kinds of things. There's so many, and I'm only starting to learn it now that I'm in a space. I've often done a lot of these things in my personal time, and then I meet some guy in the office, and it's like, he does this. He's like the mobile icon guy, and I see his icons, and I'm like, wow.
Like, you meet someone. Like, there's one thing with like doing animations, for example. This was something I brought up with the Blood River guys. Like, they have artists, and the art looks great. They have programmers. The program is great. The animation, like, they don't have animation guys, and they know they don't have animation guys. They don't.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. So that's funny that you vocalized that.
Yeah.
That was something that I couldn't help but notice. And
they're well aware. They're redoing all of the animations. They're like, this, we don't have animation people on our team. They do the job, but they're not where they want them to be.
There is a fantastic animator I always recommend to people looking for human animations. His name's Ramsters. I don't know his real name. He's online. His animations are fantastic. They work every time. They work first time, every time. 100%. It works 100% of the time, every time.
Here we go. I found it. It's spelled with a Z.
Yeah, Ramsters. Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, I think he does amazing animations for specifically for Unity. I think it's Unreal as well. Yeah. So, Ewan, if you're watching this, I'll send you an email later today. But yeah, in particular, I've used this guy's animations a lot in particular for horror. So yeah, I'd love to reach out to them actually about that and see how they're going in terms of that. But I think it's a really strong project. Speaking particularly on Ewan and moving over to there for 2 seconds. I love demons. I love horror. I love shooting crossbows and all that sort of stuff. And I think his blood mechanic system is really cool and unique. It's giving me sort of like little bit of BioShock vibes in terms of the player controller and like with the hand and the weapon, but at the same time it's got this awesome gothic feel with like, you know, demons. So what's not to love there, really? And if I can get a chance as well, I'd love to just talk for a second about my boss's game.
Absolutely.
My boss's name is Aiden. And he is the director and the main man of Catalyst Games. They are an independent game studio here in Adelaide, run by Aiden. He has brought me on a programming capacity, and you can wishlist his game now. So if you guys like Diablo, if you like Animal Crossing mixed with Diablo, like cute things, but also combat things, and you love that sort of Zelda sort of style, but also love cool combat and great mechanics. You can get your own house and put your furniture in it, and your furnitures give you little buffs to make your player better. So it's a fantastic little project. So everyone should go ahead and wishlist that now if that's their kind of thing. It's going to be a fantastic production. I'm so happy that he's, for one, given me a job. He's very generous. But two, also brought me on board with that whole process, and I'm able to help with that. Me and him are attending PAX, which is coming up in Melbourne, and we're most likely going to be attending South by Southwest Sydney together. So we're going to be going interstate and we're going around Australia and doing a bit of a tour and showing off our work, which is just, probably, if you would have said that this was going to be happening to me at this point in time, October, like last year, when I attended SAID, last year, February, the year before, when I was just like an attendee walking through, I would have said, you know, shut the front door, you know, quite literally, like, no way would I be like doing this, but I actually am, you know, and it is possible. It's totally possible to make your own games, to make games for other people, to be paid doing it, but also to enjoy it and to be seen. And you know, content creation is a hard gig. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's very rewarding in the end.
I don't know why. I think there was just people always at the table. I didn't get a chance to actually play that at AvCon. I did see it there the entire time. But I don't know. Maybe I'll reach out to them as well. See if they want to come talk.
I'd love to send an email on behalf, if that's okay. If I could send one off to Aiden and say I'll just let him know about the interview we had today and say that he's looking for other Adelaide-based game developer teams to discuss with. So if you
if you're happy to do that, that's cool. You have I emailed you. Yes.
Yeah, and I've got you on social.
Okay,
so
I couldn't remember who I'd emailed and who I'd done on Twitter.
I think we might
did
have
email.
Done Twitter.
Yeah.
Did we email?
Yeah.
And I think we're LinkedIn as well, so which is good. I will give you his information and vice versa. So he'll absolutely love the opportunity to talk about what he's been doing. He's fantastic. He's probably going to be a far better interviewer than I, because he can articulate himself without going here, there, and everywhere. But
you have a lot of energy, and I appreciate that. Like, when I have people who I can't bounce off of, like, and I have to push the conversation forward, like that's a problem for me. But when you have the ability to just riff off of whatever random topic I bring up, like, it works just fine for me.
Oh, well, thank you. I felt really comfortable actually as well, because like as I said before, I didn't know what it was going to be like coming into it, but it's just been so chilled. Like, it's literally just been a chat about dry magic moose sand and, like, you know, meat sack. And so, like, you know, you've been able to let me express myself, which I really, really appreciate. It's really hard as an artist, especially when you're trapped inside all day writing like abstract code, and then you go, now I need to talk about the thing. You know, and it's fine when you're on a bit of a roll and you've been talking about the thing for a little while, So for example, when you saw me on day 3 of AvCon, I'd lost my voice. I'd totally lost my voice, but I'd gotten into a little bit of a role about talking about the projects. But like when you go away from doing that for a little while and you come back to it, you go, oh, wait a second, what was I doing again? Oh, yeah, this. So I have to apologize for any listeners if there's a little bit of incoherence. I apologize. It comes from the nature of my work, writing gibberish all day, and then having to swap from written to oral, and and just having to flip a switch. And so I apologize in advance for that. I do.
It's good. One thing I want to bring up before we end it off about the meat sack thing. I do think you could make that work because there's like, have you ever played Super Meat Boy?
Yes.
I think
heard of.
Yeah,
I've never played. I've seen the gameplay. I'm aware of the developers, and yeah.
I think something in like because that was like a cutesy art style as well, but it was like cutesy, and then you get like ground up in a meat grinder, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think you could do something with that meat sack idea, and like take that like mix of cutesy and like really gory, and I think there could be something fun there.
You're spot on. I wanted to. We thought it'd be funny to do like cutesy and yeah, like you're spot on. And I thought for some reason we wanted him to be super cute and like saucy, and like he's like a meatball that's like really juicy and kind of gross. Like maybe he picks up hairs along the way or something while he's like rolling or something. But I wanted the environment to be like Abe's Odyssey. So like. He's like stuck in a rusty meat grinder. Like it's totally industrial, but then he's cute and he's like full on like a fish out of water, you know, like in this sort of hellhole-ish environment that is like an oven. You know, he moves through the inner workings of like an industrial oven, like Chicken Run.
Yeah. I do think there's definitely something cool you could do with that. I don't know, maybe a future game.
I'm gonna run that past my mate if he comes over tonight. I'll say I had a podcast and I ran past meat sack past him, and he's gonna be like, oh yeah, because we haven't talked about that in so long. He's like, meat sack. What are you talking about?
I hope he doesn't remember at all about it. And just
no, he does actually. I think we talked about it like a few weeks ago. Like it came up in conversation, and that's the only reason why I remembered the name, because it hit really hard. Because it was like Meatball Man, right? And then we're like, that was the pitch. It was like, it's Meatball Man, and he's like, yeah, and his name's just Meat Sack, and I was like, oh god, like it's good. It's a solid idea, right? Like, you know, it's. Especially for it being a dreadful idea, but a good idea at the same time. It's like one of those ones. Like, and you know, it's not you know, not recreating the wheel here. You know, just like really like a basic sort of concepts. But no, I do appreciate that. That gives me a lot of confidence. There's one other concept actually that I could share with your viewers, and maybe they'll find this funny. Actually, I was pitching this to some people the other day. I was talking to Fringe Realities. Did you experience the VR experience at AvCon? The one where they're in a space thing? They are a team here in Adelaide called Fringe Realities. I might put you in touch together as well if there might be someone that you'd want to interview down the line. They specialize in VR. Which is really fascinating, you know, being able to put the headset on and get into the game, like quite literally. But I was speaking to them recently about a concept because I made a VR prototype. Me and my friend made a VR prototype a long time ago that we thought was a really strong idea, but in execution it was dreadful, right? Like the way we had done it in VR and stuff. And like if we would do it now, we've learned a lot, so we actually would know how to do it quote unquote properly now versus like how we used to develop back then. But so basically the game is a VR game and it's called Making Toast.
Okay. And this is the pitch, and so it's super silly. But you start in a room, 4 brick walls. That's all it is. And you're like, oh, okay, this is odd. And you have this kind of humming room ambience, and then you turn around, and then out of nowhere it's like, there's a fridge. Okay, jump scares you like classic
SpongeBob and Ren and Stimpy close-ups. So like whenever you see something, it's always like super grotesque and stuff. So the first thing you do, your empty room, you're like, what am I doing here? But then as soon as you like look away and turn around, a fridge appears and it's like, boom, jump scare. And then you go, okay, that's weird. And then you go, all right, I'm gonna go up to the fridge. You open the fridge door, and it's really sad, man. There's only 2 pieces of bread sitting on the fridge grates, and it's once again, it's another jump scare. So as soon as you open the fridge and see these 2 pieces of toast, it goes, right? And you go, oh no, like what do I do? And then so from there, you can take the 2 pieces of bread out of the fridge. You know, I don't like refrigerated bread. And for people that know it, some people do this refrigerate bread, and I get that sometimes you've got to do it, right? Sometimes. But like the whole gag of it was like, you know, there's nothing worse than you look in the fridge at home and then there's like 2 pieces, there's like 1 jar of mayonnaise in the fridge and you're like, what the hell am I going to do with this, right? So like that was the initial idea of the game. But where we were, you open the door, you see the 2 pieces of bread on the grates. Super depressing. And like every time it's like a Ren and Stimpy close up. So it's like, oh, like it's never appealing. I can't stress the fact of how unappealing everything is in this game. Mm-hmm. So you pick up these 2 pieces of bread from the fridge and you turn around again. And then of course what appears out of nowhere is a table with a toaster on it. Uh-huh. Okay. And so you go, oh, okay. I now have to make toast, right? So this kind of things start to like click together, and it's very like much like step by step. Strange thing is, you go over to the toaster, you put the toast in the toaster, and there's also a framed picture of Ray Romano on the table. When you pick it up, it does canned laughter, and when you drop it, the canned laughter stops. So like every time you pick it up, it just does that. And so it's all very confusing and very abstract, but like the idea is, you know, it's very much like the Stanley Parable. If you've ever
love
heard
that.
Yeah. So you know, you're in a thing and then you turn around and then another thing appears and you have to do said thing with the thing. And so we've got a toaster, we've got Ray Romano, we've got 2 pieces of bread. We've got to put the bread in the toaster and turn the toaster on. You have to toast the bread to a correct crispy level. You can't burn the toast. If you burn the toast, the entire room catches on fire. And, right? So you have to burn the toast perfectly and take the toast out. So you literally have to manually... You know how sometimes you leave your toaster on and it burns the toast, right? Because you didn't get to it early in time. So that's a mechanic, right, in the game. Like, you actually need to, like, catch the toaster at the perfect spot, otherwise it will burn your toast every time. So you pull the toast out, and then as soon as you pull this toast out, and it has to be perfectly cooked, like within a range, and then when you do that, you turn around, there's a cupboard, and you go, all right, this is kooky. You look in the cupboard, and there's peanut butter and jelly, right, and butter, and a butter knife, right. So from there, you have to butter your toast, and then put peanut butter, one with peanut butter and one with jelly on the other, and make a sandwich. And we thought, and then in amongst that, you also have to create other dishes. There is a gnome who appears, okay? Mm-hmm. He appears, it's a garden gnome, because obviously everything's appearing, and it's very Stanley Parable, so it's all very random, and like, it's very trippy. Mm-hmm. And then out of nowhere, you hear like a hee. And he's this little gnome, and he appears. And then what happens is, if you don't put the gnome in the freezer, he starts to light fires. Like, he starts teleporting around the place, lighting fires. And so you're trying to cook toast while not burning your toast, while this little gnome is going around lighting fires. And you have a fire extinguisher, and you have to put out all these fires while making toast. And there's so the funniest thing about this is, it's like the worst pitch ever, but there's so many funny little things within it that make me think that it's worth exploring. Because like, whenever I explain it to people, it's like, when I come up to the bit where they're like, oh, it's, you know, you open it up and there's 2 pieces of bread on the grates. It's like, that's funny, right? Like, it's very kind of relatable and dumb. And then like from there, you get a framed picture of Ray Romano, and you get a table, and you get a toaster, and you're like, okay. Like, the frame clearly does nothing, right? Like, you know, and you find that out pretty quickly, that it does nothing but laugh, like, every time you pick it up. That's all it does. But the toast you actually have to make the toast and you have to actually make a sandwich. And we figured like, how do you win the game? And we're like, oh, out of nowhere, like you turn around and there's like a hole in the wall and out of the bricks and it's just 2 eyes and a massive tongue. And he goes like, and you have to feed him the sandwiches that you make. Like he rolls his tongue out of the wall.
Right.
And he's like, and you basically have to like put the sandwich on his tongue. And he's like, and then he's like, yeah, you did a good job. Like,
for anyone who's unsure why I brought him on the podcast, this energy is what he had at Avcon. He couldn't talk, but this was the energy he had.
So yeah, it's a strange pitch, but I did want to share it to your audience as a funny idea, right? Like, if you could follow along with my crazy nonsense, right? Like that is this pitch. I promise I will work on an elevator pitch for in future. Like one thing that I could say, like it'd be like, it's a VR game about making toast with wild and wacky consequences that like happen along the way. So like the Stanley Parable, it's kind of like, you know, the more you do, the more weird and wacky it comes along the way and the more sort of choice that you have within it. But yeah, it's the concept's really silly. So yeah, no, thanks for letting me share that with your audience because I shared that one the other day. I hadn't spoken about that project in so long, and I was seeing these guys from Fringe Reality, these VR guys, and they're like, and I thought, oh, it's perfect time just to relay this really old game. Like we have a whole prototype built, but it's just not to a standard that we're comfortable with. So, but just being able to explain the idea, I thought. A bit like Meat Sack. I thought there's actually something there behind this game. Like this, it's very much like the Stanley Parable meets Overcooked meets like Zombinis or something. You know, like you have to like make a thing. Deliver a thing and get rewarded on the points, but it's all in VR and it's all really jank. Like, and they would lean into like, sort of, it'd be very goat simulatory, like where like maybe the bread's super slippery. Like if you butter the bread becomes so slippery you can barely handle it. So like you've got to like, you know, like lob it up onto a table. Like if it's buttered, you have to lob the bread up onto a table and then put peanut butter on it, like while it's sitting flat on a table. Otherwise you just can't handle a buttery piece of bread. Just like leaning into those kinds of silly things that make absolutely no sense at all. The Ray Romano photo in a sense is like the ethos of that game.
Okay, sure.
Like, you turn around, right? And then like, there's a frame. And by the way, this is funny too. The photo I got of Ray Romano, I like got it, the most high fidelity one I could from the 90s. And then I like upscaled it again. And so like basically in the game files, half of the texture files is just a photo of Ray Romano in high def so that you can hold it up to your face in VR. And it's like the crispiest photo of Ray Romano you've ever seen. So when he's laughing, it's like, he's looking into your soul because he's like upscaled 100 times, taking up half the game's data. It's just Ray Romano .jpeg. Yeah. Anyway, like ridiculous, right?
Yes. Well, on that note, we should probably be ending off the episode because we're past the 2-hour mark now.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you for having me, Brody.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you for dealing with the madness that is Jonniemadeit.
No, it was fun. I enjoyed that. Let people know where they can find your games, where they can find you, and anything else you want to direct people to.
Thank you. I would direct everybody to jonniemadeit.com. As you know, Brody has said. As I've relayed to Brody, I'm working on it, and as he said, you know, there's some broken links. So please be patient there because I am trying to do game development stuff on the side. Web development is kind of a secondary thing for me, so I'm trying as hard as I can to get that out, but it is harder for me to do that than games. So everybody's patience there is very well received. So thank you. But I would direct people to Steam. Don't let him in. And if you would pick up a copy of that and play it, and leave me a review, leave me a comment, send me an email, get in touch. Like I said before, it's really means a lot. It keeps me going and doing what I'm doing, getting player feedback and feedback from the people. So please don't be a stranger.
And also there is the game that you're employed to work on.
Yes, of course. Yep. Dungeons and Dining Tables, and I'm currently also doing client works for Catalyst Games. So yeah, check out Catalyst Games online. Check out my boss Aiden. He's a man with the plan. He's helping me with my plans. And yeah, he's set for a massive trajectory of success with his game, and also I am very much in love with his game. So check him out, see what he's all about. Check me out online, and thanks for stopping by. And thank you again, Brody, for your time, for your audience's time. Yeah, thank you.
No, it was an absolute pleasure. I had a lot of fun with this. Yeah, if you ever want to do this again in the future with some other random game project you have going on, then I would love to do that.
Oh, I would love to keep you updated with my work. I will keep you updated with my work every step along the way. Thanks for being in touch, and I will. I'd love to get this information to you to hopefully get you a few more people to interview before the end of like this sort of series, before you start up your next indie, like the next game series, the post Avcon one. Yeah, I know that my boss would love to speak to you, so I will. Awesome. I'm gonna get him involved, and thank you again.
Yeah. Before we end, I'll do my outro. So if you want to check out my main channel, that is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. The gaming channel is Brody on Games. Right now I'm playing through Devil May Cry 4. Very fun game. Highly recommend it. And Metal Wolf Chaos XD, where you play as the US president who his vice president decided to overthrow the government. So you fight him in a mech. It's made by From Software.
What platform is that on?
It's on PC. It's on everything. It's by From Software. Before they made like Armored Core 6, they released this like years and years ago.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And if you're listening to the audio version of this, you can find the video version on YouTube at Tech Over Tea, and the audio version is on any podcast platform. There is an RSS feed. It's on Apple Podcasts. Put in your favorite app, and you'll be good to go. Give me your final word. How do you want to end us off?
Thank you, Brody.
Absolute pleasure.
Same to you.
See you later.
See ya.